The Boss Ladies panel started when we opened our showroom in the Boston Design Center. And it was basically Design New England said, we'd like you to host a panel, and we think that this would be a good title. And that was in 2000. I don't know. It was 7 years ago. And as a result of that, we started doing it annually for our Design Chicago panel. And because of the attendance and the feedback that we got, we decided to do it. We started last year here, and then doing it again this year. And basically, I spoke with all of these ladies before, we got on a Zoom call for about an hour, and, just to touch base on what we wanted to discuss. And the thing that really was so refreshing is that everybody was really authentic in discussing the trials, tribulations, success that they've faced. And so what we'll do is I'll launch into a series of questions anywhere from, when did you start to be a boss? How did you know you were a boss? We're going to talk about motherhood, which I've been the moderator of this panel before, and the panelists said, I don't want to discuss mothers, being a mom at all. And this panel was absolutely opposite. They said, no, I think we really need to discuss that topic and the balance and how we move through the challenges that we face and see on the other side and what it brings to our life. What the ideas that they have for the future. And then of course, like the, stories that we hear on job sites, how to set boundaries, and that kind of thing. I am happy to have you ask questions in the middle of it if something strikes you. Otherwise, I will leave 5 to 7 minutes at the end of the panel for questions from the audience. So I will jump in. And the first question is, have you always been a boss, or was there a specific aha moment that you can remember that launched you into your position? And anybody can jump in.
That's kind of hard. Say that one more time.
Okay, look, I will start and answer my own question. So, was there an aha moment when you knew that you were a boss? And I asked my mother this, and she basically said, when you were 10, you were assigned to be the bus monitor. So every morning you would walk up and down the aisle.
You took that to heart.
And tell kids, put your feet in, sit down, lower your voice. So at 10, like that's
the police.
I was policing. So was there an aha moment for you, or were you born like this?
Born.
I could share a funny story and then a serious story. So as a kid, same thing. I mean, it was like, I learned in kindergarten that I could make some money because there were only a few people that were allowed on this like indoor playground. So I was like, fine, if you want to get on, you can charge me, like I'll charge you $1. And then you can get on.
Hustling.
Oh, I was hustling. And then by the time I was in high school, don't recommend this. But I learned that I could have 3 jobs. I worked at a civil engineering firm. I worked for the Pistons, and I was babysitting. And then I would outsource my homework.
Brilliant.
Said this is kindergarten.
Genius.
Oh, no. That was by the time I was
oh.
not in
Who
high
did you
school.
outsource to?
What's that?
Who did you outsource your homework to?
Oh, they're all doctors now. It was perfect. Lived the best life. But I think for me, so, and I'm sure this will follow in other questions too, but when I started my business, I was 24. I had just left a corporate job where I was working facility management. We were doing build outs in downtown Detroit and other locations throughout the nation related to Quicken Loans. And my boss sat me down, and it was not her intention, but when you were a 22-year-old just out of college and you think that you know everything, she sat me down and she was like, you are not an interior designer. And this was a person I really looked up to. And that just crushed me. Although she was talking to my job title, I took that as my identity. And my husband and I sat in our driveway at 24 with my 2-month son in the back. And he was like, you should just do it. Just start your own business. And I was like, well, the numbers don't line up. Like we needed to make money. We got married super young, and He's like, just do it. I believe in you. And so I took the leap. And it wasn't easy at first. I would say my first 4 years in business, while I was juggling, raising and having more children, I struggled with that imposter syndrome like no other. I mean, I was terrified to come here at the design center because I wasn't old enough. I didn't have a big enough portfolio. My projects weren't elaborate enough. I was not enough. And I told myself that, and I lived out of it, and I think it was just this, like, I was talking to Rita O'Brien, which many of you may know, and I was like, how much would it cost to just rent here? And I was like, instead of living out of the imposter syndrome, I'm just going to step into my biggest fear and like put my roots down, and I realized instead of operating out of fear, I'm going to overcome that fear. And so, of that, I started IDS Detroit, Interior Design Society. We have some members here. Others you should join.
We'll send you a link.
Yeah, and I was just like, you know what? Instead of like living out of this fear, I'm going to overcome it and empower other women to create a sense of belonging with that. So for me, it's kind of a journey. It's been a journey, but I think when I just like realized like I'm not going to live out of fear anymore, that was that like I could be a boss, feels really good. So
For me, I would say there was an aha moment, but as a kid, Alisha, I was the same way. Apparently, I bossed people around in a very nice way. And then one of the things, I'm a mother of 3 as well. Mine are significantly older, really, than yours are. I did get married young, had the children very young, and you do become a boss, as most of you mothers know. There's so much to do. I was a civil engineer major at the time before I had the children. And then it looked like speaking of where we are, the dean at the U of D, I'm sorry, that we were going to, said, basically, you're a woman, you will become an engineer, you will not make as much money as men, you will not move up in the corporate ladder. Things have changed now, but we're talking about 25 years ago. So he basically told me it's not a good idea. If you like something else, go ahead and do it. So I did like design. Design was a passion of mine. I did do it. As dad liked fashion, liked anything to do with design, then decided to get a degree in design. And that was one of the best probably decision that I've ever made. Gave me the flexibility and the freedom to be home when I need to be with the children, because I would make my own, obviously, hours. I worked for Masterpiece Gallery. I think some of you would know that, in Birmingham, right out of design school. That was my aha moment. I was doing so much there where I was not the owner. I was not a manager. I was simply the only employee really there. So stayed there for 11 months. I wanted to learn, and I did learn a lot from her, from the owner. She was wonderful. And then I just literally right after that went and opened my own design company. And it served us well. It was a lot of work juggling children and that. But here we are. And now I am in a different era as you guys. I'm not, my children have graduated from college, and it's a beautiful time. I'm enjoying it. And now the reason I came to Cercan Tile was because of that. They've gone to college. I don't have to work 7 days a week, as I know most of you designers do. So this was good at the design center, 9 to 5. Well, I'm a manager significantly more than just 9 to 5. But Saturdays and Sundays, the design center is not open. And that was the reason really I took this 6.5 years ago. One of the best decisions of my life. So I'm after the children are young.
So
point in
basically,
my
you
life.
guys got a door closed and then found another door and then just ran
Absolutely.
through it,
Absolutely. And it was great.
It's basically what you guys are saying. Same thing.
Exactly. So
Nick, you want to jump in?
Yeah, so I became a boss because I can't fathom the idea of having somebody tell me what to do all the time because
That's the truth.
is it?
you need to figure out your life. I can do it myself. I can probably do it better than
That's
you.
why we love you.
I had a series I had a series of bad bosses and it seemed like my theory was true. And when our dad was like, you should do this Scavolini thing, I was like, no, that's a bad idea, because I tell everybody no. And then my sister said, hey, I have a good idea. I'm going to quit my PhD in clinical psychology and I'm going to open up a Scavolini store. And I was like watching her do all that stuff. And I was like, oh, I should do that. So my dad was right all along. And I quit my very comfortable job at the University of Michigan, where I could have just proceeded to work and live for the rest of my life. And instead, in the sort of worst part of the economy of the crash in 2010, we decided to, you know what, let's figure out how to sell luxury Italian kitchen and bath cabinets.
Modern
nothing
Ferrari
about.
red.
By the
like-
way,
Boss lady.
not only did we not major or study anything in relation
We
to
didn't
design,
have a scale in
didn't
our
have a fucking
office.
scale in our office,
6 months.
didn't know how to read a plan.
Oh.
Didn't know how to design, still don't know CAD, by the way. I still don't know it. I don't know Revit. I don't know 2020. I don't know any of these things. I do know how to read a plan though. And I do know how to sell stuff.
Yes, you
And
do.
that first year, we sold 7 kitchens, which by the
Hey.
way is nothing, by scratching our way to the surface, begging people to trust us. And it was a tough couple of years, but we, out of just the inability,
Luck.
well,
Hard
we were
work.
like, we can't go home with our tail in between our legs. We're gonna make this shit work. We gotta figure it out right now. And we worked and we worked and we worked until we figured it out.
4 short
Haha.
years later.
So because Heather brought up the imposter syndrome, I wanted to touch on that because it's something that I think that we all face. And imposter syndrome is defined as the uncomfortable feeling of being unqualified or incompetent. It can affect anyone in any profession, and it's characterized by self-doubt, undervaluing contributions, attributing success to external factors, setting unrealistic expectations, continuous fear of not living up to expectations, considering recognition you earn to be sympathy or pity, writing off your success to luck or timing. And I think I will speak as women. I think that there is this imposter syndrome that we can feel. It's
I mean, and that applies to all different areas, not just work, right? Like we can say that about a lot of things.
everywhere. So please speak on that and how you have been able to overcome or whether it's fluctuating.
I can start just because I was talking and I'll just keep talking.
You do that.
I will. So this one is, I know, then I'll pass.
You guys be quiet. I'm talking.
So what happened when Alisha and I opened, I was 27 and she was 29. And people would ask us if our husbands were rich and this was our hobby.
Daddy money or whatever.
And then as we got older and had varying levels of success, the new question is, oh, did you inherit this company from your family? Was that your dad that built this? Like, no, motherfucker, I built this with my sister, and but it contributes to the idea of imposter syndrome, because how could you possibly have built this? How could you have done that? You must have inherited it, or you must have been given this. You're not going to be given anything. You have to figure it out. You have to take it. You have to say yes and no at the right times. You have to fail a lot. And then, it's difficult to say and have the confidence in yourself to take that step and be okay to fail, because I trip and fall on my face all the time. And so it's just a matter of getting back up and not being scared, not being scared to do it.
And I also think it's about like figuring out, okay, what am I going to fail at? Swallowing that down, like breaking it down, right? So like, am I going to fail at not giving 100% to being a mom this week? Maybe I don't cook this week. Maybe I order in every day. And is that a failure to me? Like, okay, squash that. No, my kids are eating. Don't be silly. Like, and realizing, backing up and saying to yourself, like, okay, this isn't failure. This is just about making it work. So I think that's important too. Just knowing what qualifies as being a failure? What qualifies as being like something that you are like intimidated by? And really breaking that down, because there's so much of that in owning your own business. So much intimidation and swallowing failure and becoming like not fearing less, but like becoming fearless in some situations. So
I think I was in Dallas a couple of weeks ago, similar panel, and did this. This is so cheesy, but bear with me. Okay, you guys, look to your left, to the person on your left. Okay, look to the person on your right. These are your people. Okay, these are the people that we need to lock arms with, because what we do, a lot of what we do is we're solopreneurs. We're either working by ourselves or in a very small firm. And it's hard. Like, anyone else have a crazy freaking client? I know I'm not the only one. Yeah, I'm sure
There's
we
not
could have a
one. There's
whole
not
nother like 3-week long panel of all the crazies out there.
all the stories.
Yeah, and we can't possibly do this alone. So for me, I joined a group. We actually have another baker in here, the interior design business bakery. It was a coaching master course. And I've met some of my best friends there. They are all across the nation. I have friends in Texas, Philly, Vegas, California, and they're my people. We talk almost every day. And it's like, when life is hard and when you feel like a failure, when you feel just beat down by your clients or just the overwhelming tasks of life, and I can call my people and they're there for me to
And
be
they can
like,
relate, you know?
yes,
Your
they
husband maybe
relate.
not can't relate to all these things, or like your best friend outside of interior design. But yeah, having this community is so important.
Yes, and don't be afraid. I mean, these are like having people that speak the same language as us is just, it's so uplifting. It's so encouraging, knowing you're not alone in your struggles, or people there to celebrate your highest victories and your lowest lows. It's like, I think that's essential. And when I realized, like, instead of being the, oh, I don't have any friends in the industry, to be like, I'm going to be a friend. Like, who wants to be my friend? Anyone else like to have a good time and talk design? I know we all do. So let's be friends and lift each other up in the highs and lows of the journey.
And I have, one of the things that I think I learned over the many years of being a designer, and more than that, being a mom.
Is it on?
Here. Oh, I got it. Hello, hi. Okay, good. Prioritizing. I think that's the biggest thing that I think has helped me personally and professionally. I write notes. I literally say, this is really more important when I'm overwhelmed. This is not going well. This is not going well. I need to do this for that. Clients, business. I have someone told me this, my teacher, Pam, my design teacher, said, just write what is a priority this week.
And break
You
it
know,
down, right?
And is it
Delegate.
Is it your children? Then the work may suffer a bit, and that's okay. Is it, work right now, and you explain it to the children. So I do this honestly on, I think sometimes in my head now, I don't write anything down, on daily basis. What is more important? Will this suffer if I concentrate on this, or vice versa? And there is a balance. We can find a balance. It's hard at times. We all struggle, obviously, but we can find a balance. And that took many years, I think, and good friends, Tracy, and sometimes, like you said, I am very lucky. Surround yourself by friends who are, intelligent, accomplished, and they can actually break some things down for you. This is what I've noticed. Sometimes I'd be overwhelmed. I would call her, let's go for dinner. And by the end of that, we're okay. But prioritizing has been, I think, my saving grace. Because we can't do everything all the time. If you're a man or a woman, none of us can do everything well all the time.
Yeah, I
So-
think the main goal is that we're all balancing and struggling. So if you're looking in the mirror and you're like, oh, I'm thinking about pivoting my career or starting a new business, and you're like, oh, I'm worried this, and this. Okay, worry because everyone else is worrying, right? But take a step back and focus on how much you should actually be worrying and putting things in categories. Am I worried about my house being clean? Okay, sub it out. Get someone to help you clean your house. Like things like that. Laundry, take it off your plate. I mean, and moms were constantly like, okay, how much milk is in the jug at home? Like we're thinking about the smallest things, but it weighs so heavy. And for what? Take a step back. Write things down, talk about it. Like, is this a big deal? Or like, if I call someone, I'm about to cry. Like, no, don't cry. Like pick yourself up. Like you're
I
good.
cried in the doctor's office yesterday.
For what?
I don't know.
Okay.
Just,
But I think that's
sometimes you just gotta
important.
let it out.
Yeah, you gotta let it out.
Right?
It was my daughter's doctor appointment. It like wasn't even for me. And she was like, "Do you need a note to give to your boss?" And I was like, "It's from me to me." I'll take it. Thank you.
But I think that's important, and everybody, we can transition into the topic of balance, unbalance, also boundaries. I think let's launch right into that topic. You guys are already sort of there.
Boundaries is something that I personally struggle with. So my husband and I are in the same industry. He is a rep for a high-end lighting company for the entire state of Michigan. And I also am in the interior design. So like every day at 5 o'clock, we've got to remind ourselves, turn off. Because and then we just kind of sit in silence because we're like, okay, so what else do we talk about? And because it's all the time, it's 24/7. I bring my kids up here on the weekend. We're constantly working in the showrooms. And it's one of those things like, okay, this is not life. Like chasing money is really fun and exciting and it's fulfilling in a different way. However, you constantly have to kind of remind yourself that this is not everything. I have to travel. I have to expand my business. I have to take a risk. I have to go out to dinner. I mean, things like that. I mean, boundaries are hard for sure.
I would say, just as an interior designer, working with clients, I just communicate it right up front. Like, hey, I love what I do, and these are my hours. You can text me, or I don't typically give out my phone number unless, anyway, but like you can email me any time of the day. Any time of the day. If you're up at 2 a.m. and you come up with a really brilliant idea, by all means, email me. You will hear from me Monday through Thursday, 10 to 3. I mean, you are the business owner. You are the freaking boss. Like you get to say how you run your business. Otherwise, they will run your business. So when you guys, feel like, oh my gosh, my clients are taking advantage of me or whatever, how have you, communicate it? And like, I mean, the name of the panel is Be a Boss. Like you are allowed to be the boss of your own company.
Like saying no, right? Remember we talked about that?
Well, it's saying no. And it's also just like, this is how I run. And like, tell them that before they sign the dotted line. Tell them that before you're in a 12-month relationship with these clients and they're calling you on Saturdays expecting you to pick up. Let them know, when are your business hours? How do you communicate? How do you expect them to communicate with you?
No, I think we have another.
10:30. Okay, good. I got a panic attack that we were late.
We have another.
Because
You guys
you
get
at
more of us
11:30?
for another 25 to 27 minutes. TT jumped the gun.
Maybe we find another.
Talk about balance.
Yeah, no, we're good.
Okay, please go.
Brittany mentioned pivot. Probably, probably my story about pivot is quite interesting. So I was an interior designer, owned my own business for 21 years based in Bloomfield Hills. Everything is fun. My children are going to school. I pick up, I drop off. The hall mom, the everything. It worked out a lot of work because they sleep, then I work. When they got a little older, they're now in college, and I just did not want to do this 7 day a week. I got approached, really, I was helping a friend. A lot of you know Elizabeth at Cercan Tile. Cercan Tile has been here since 2001, which is the year I graduated from design school. That's when I met the owners of Cercan Tile. So that when I became a designer, I started purchasing from them because I do love their product. They follow European trends. It's an Italian company. I love everything about it. And this is 15 years prior to me taking the job. Elizabeth, the owner, was going to retire. She's a friend of mine. I was helping her trying to recruit for someone to take over managing Cercan. Long story short, I have no idea how that happened. I was approached to take over the project. The managing, I'm sorry, they had 2 showrooms at the time. The reason I'm saying that, so when the first year I came in, I said, not beneath me, but what am I doing here? This is just when you go to a different, what am I doing here? I'm a designer. I do this, now it's only tile. I struggled with that, honestly, for 9 months. I had 1 foot in, 3 out. And I used to tell them that I just was not. And then it kind of, I have no idea when that came in, but it did. And so I said, here's the thing. Now it's a beautiful Italian, very exclusive tile place. Let's see what else I can do with it. In my mind, I said, let me turn it into a design house for designers. And once that came in, and then I just built through that. So it is now a design house for designers. I am a designer, therefore I understand their struggles. I understand the complicated clients. So I see it from a different perspective because I am one of you. So we took that, fingers crossed, I could turn this into what I wanted to. I did. We expanded twice. And then the new showroom that when you walk in, that's ours. The point I'm trying to make is, even though it was in my mind completely different, this is beneath me. I have accomplished so much as a designer and multi-million-dollar homes. What am I doing here? No. So you make, I guess, when you decide to change careers or to change roads, is how my dad used to say it. You just have to make that road work for you, which is, I feel like, what I did here. So I think we can, if one thing is not working as well, or it's not conducive to our now lifestyle, my children were out of the house. I didn't want to just do this for the rest of my life, but I made this to work for me. And I think that, and I'm happy. Some people that know me well will say that. So when we pivot, it's not always bad. Make it work for you and for your needs, and you can still expand and be successful in a different area.
When
Well,
you're
I
a
was-
solo entrepreneur too, I think the thing that I also struggle with is if I'm not going to do it, who's going to do it? And many of us are in small firms or single individual firms. And if you're not doing it, it's not getting done. And how do I balance life with that idea? And that becomes really difficult. And honestly, I fail at it all the time. I have terrible, I'm terrible at balancing. I mean, I'm working all the time.
Delegating, I think, is our biggest
Yeah,
issue.
I mean, the biggest thing is to, though, I think what Wendy said earlier is prioritizing what can you get done now and what can be pushed off is one of the ways that I can figure that out. I'm fortunate enough to have a really strong team. Who's sitting there?
Shout out.
And the other showrooms too. And so realizing that I'm so controlling, but other people can do things as well as I, and in a lot of cases better. And I have to give them the room to do that and trust my own process that I set up. And so the balance comes into play because then I can focus on either the growth of the company or the family thing, or my kid is sick, or,
I want to
taking a break.
I want to spin off of that because there's something that I was listening to, and it was talking about how you can cloud your inside fire because you have all those little things to do. So let's just say you have a million things to do while you're working on a mood board. You can't possibly be as fruitful or as inspired to work on this because you're bottled down with all these small things. Whereas if you delegate to a team, you can be who your company needs you to be, right? So that's so key. It's so key because unless I'm buying all these little accessories in here from my new store. unless I'm clear-minded and can delegate things to my husband or my team at my stores, like I won't be able to source stuff. Like I can't handle it. I get overwhelmed and too much into my zone in a bad way. So I think that's so important. Seriously.
To add to that too, I think like I go back to that moment in my driveway of my little royal oak bungalow where like I was just feeling so just not myself at my job. And I was like, I really just I want to start my own business. And my husband was like, do it. That night, my why was my passion for interior design, to have the flexibility to spend time with my kids. And it's so easy to lose sight, whatever your why is. Why did you think back to that very moment when you were like, I'm starting my business? What is that why? And when you lose sight of that, remind yourself, whether it's, take a picture. Is it a picture of your family? When you say yes to other things, you're also saying no to possibly your why. So, for me, when I'm thinking about my boundaries, I have to realize like, what are the things I'm saying yes to? And what are the things I'm saying no to that are in alignment with my core foundational reason of starting my business?
Which you may not see your nose or like your things that won't always be perfect right off the bat. Like that could be 3-5 years later where it could in turn show something negative to your yeses today. Right. And so understanding
pressure.
that and being and being okay with it. Right. So like, what will I lose out on? Like, is that okay? Can I swallow it down to make this next step in my business? So, and that can also be your why, can also be an intuition, which is what mine was. When I had City Lights Detroit, everything was working fine. It's a well-oiled machine. I mean, I didn't have to do much to it, and something was still calling at me. And there was 7,000 square feet next to me that was god awful. It took me 6 months just to white wall it. Okay. I found concrete in the walls, you guys. It was ridiculous. But for some reason, I had to go. I had to go through that wall. I didn't have a choice. And, my husband was like, are you sure? Yeah, let's go. And so we pushed through it, and it was my intuition. And I literally called so many people, and I'm like, what am I doing? Why did I do this? And someone told me, because you have to. No one else is doing it. You have to. I was like, oh my God, I had to. I had to.
I think an important point is what is the highest value that you bring, because keeping the highest value and the highest priority sometimes isn't what is the noisiest. And I think that that's very difficult because the noise can be so loud, and it might be a client, it might be a lawsuit, it might be, an issue on a job site. Those things are really loud. The phone blowing up. But is the attention to that my highest value? Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but the noise doesn't equate the importance, which I think can be difficult. Are there specific tips that you guys have, or tricks or advice that you use to sort of keep your priorities or set your boundaries?
Wendy, you said writing things down, like mentally
did.
or physically.
Yeah, mentally or physically. I do it on a regular basis. And then when that fails, then I call in a friend, or I call in someone I know. And I feel here too, the design center here. Some of you actually work here, some of you come in and out. We all have become, it's a family here. I go to Niki quite often, she started, and ask her
Never.
for advice. So it's good to bounce things. And I've said things to both of you fine ladies. It's nice to bounce or discuss certain struggles with other, either they've been through it or they bring a fresh perspective and they're completely removed from it. They're not in it. They may see things better. So I think seeking advice of a friend or a colleague is very important to me, very beneficial.
And being okay to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Right? Like accepting that it may not be great on your perspective of what you may have done or something. Like being okay to hear what your friends are going to say, good or bad.
Absolutely.
I have 2 bits of advice. First off, define what success is to you. What does being a boss look like to you? Because what is being a boss to you may be way different than me or the rest of us here or the person sitting next to you. So if you don't know what that clear, like, what is it? What is being a boss look like to you? Then you're just gonna feel like you won't have direction, right? So what is that for you?
Like success, you're saying?
Success. What is being a boss? So, like, for example, do you want a children? Do you want a team? Do you like working out of your home? Do you like just having you and maybe you outsource a couple of things? Like, what is that definition of
Look like?
success to you? Otherwise, and I've been there where you're just like, oh my gosh, move the goalpost, move the goalpost, move the goalpost. And then it's like, what is success to me? Because if you're comparing what success is to you based on the success of your neighbor, you'll never actually feel fulfilled.
And we
So
talked
what
about
is
that? Comparing ourselves with society.
Yeah.
Right? And every time we look in the mirror, we're like, not quite
You
there.
always fall short by
You
comparison.
always fall short. And
Yeah.
there's nothing that as a woman, like social media, oh my God, if you open social media, you're like,
Don't.
well, she looks good. You know, they're on vacation again, right? And it's like in owning a business, you're the last person to get paid. You're the last person to leave, first person in. It's just a very, in that retrospect, it's like you have to be okay with all those things.
There's a couple pieces of advice I would give to anybody that's wanting or in business for themselves or in general in life. The first one and the most important one is to fail faster. I didn't coin that. I read it somewhere by somebody that's smarter than I, but the idea of failing, it means that you're trying new things because you don't know necessarily, like I still don't know sometimes what my core competency is and what do I bring to this company. And so if I try something and it helps us, excellent. If it doesn't, ditch it. And learning how to do that over and over again is the thing that helps us ultimately grow. When I don't know what I should be doing and I'm a doer, I set tasks for myself. It's like a huge strength, but also a big weakness because it's really easy for me to get caught up in the bullshit. And it's really easy for me to get caught up in the emails and the phone calls and the lawsuits and the
You're bottling yourself
minutia.
down, right? You can't be who you need to be.
Yeah, my two strengths is I can sell water to a well and I can operate. I can set protocol and processes. That's what I do for the company. I help do those two things. So when I don't know what I'm doing, and this any business owner can copy and do, follow the money. What is going to get you the next paycheck? Because we're like gigpreneurs. Like we're looking for our next gig, looking for our next client. And if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm looking for the next client and I'm trying to close it.
I think a woman being in sales is like one of the most powerful roles in the world, honestly, because okay, yeah, right, okay, but sales, it's really.
We don't get a
runs the
paycheck
world.
unless we close it.
That's
Like
right.
you're not getting money unless, oh, he put up a time check. Oh, thanks, Greg. I know.
Thank you.
We need help sometimes. You see?
to add to that too, I think making investments in your business. Not talking like it doesn't have to be a showroom, studio, whatever, but I would say within the past 7 years of my business, I've invested probably about $100,000 into coaching, mentorship, summits, travel. Sounds like a lot, but I can tell you, I have multiplied my business every year. Every investment is a return. And with that comes freedom, both emotional, financial freedom. There are so many resources out there right now. Yes, find people who are more successful than you, but no, it's not just going to come at the cost of a $4 latte. Like sometimes you have to pay for that education. Yes, there's college education, but there's, there are groups out there that are going to literally on a silver platter hand you the processes, the things to do. Like invest in it. It will bring you a community, it'll bring you education, and it'll bring you freedom. So I'm happy to talk about if you guys want to talk to me after, I'll gladly.
The way I found how to invest in those things is find the thing that you hate to do and then pay someone else to do it. I was doing
minutes.
when we first opened, I had a real job before this. I did.
I had a
As I
real
said, I worked
job.
for the U of M and I used to do all the reconciliations. You guys have to do this on QuickBooks, like kill me now. Like what money is coming in and what's going out, but it's so tedious and it made me want to blow my brains out every single month. And I was inapproachable because I would just turn into a giant bitch. So finally, I was like, you know what? This is keeping me back from doing what I like to do, doing what I'm good at, i.e. sales or actual operations. The first thing that we hired out, and it's not cheap, but it's worth every freaking penny, is an accountant.
Yes.
And every single time I'm like, you know what? I hate this part of my job. Social media is on deck next. It's like finding the person to do the thing that you hate. And it frees me up to spend more time on the thing that I'm good at or love.
This is exactly what we did. I think that's why we expand. At Cercan. I have roles. I have 3, 4 other ones that I need to fill. But to your point, now we have the freedom to do what we do best. We do. So absolutely.
I will say that investment, as you were talking about, is really critical. I've learned that lesson. We've learned that lesson a lot where we've invested in other things or other people, and I will never again invest in other things or other people. I will always invest in myself and in my company. The other piece about investment is that even if you fail, like we did a long shot and we opened a showroom in Washington, DC. It failed. We closed.
Giant failure.
Huge. I'll tell you,
Massive.
we learned
Education is so
listen,
expensive.
education's expensive,
Absolutely.
so expensive, but we
And to my emotional pride, it was very expensive.
My father would say everything here is a lesson.
It's the
You know,
cost of
if-
tuition.
If you didn't do well, that was a good lesson, you know, so.
My husband and I we'll sit on the couch and talk about like highs and lows of business. And sometimes the lows are really freaking expensive. And we'll just pour a glass of wine and do a cheers to tuition and move on to the next
An
one.
expensive lesson though. And the word boss, like I'm kind of, on the fence about that. If you're in control of your life professionally and personally, and you're growing every day in both areas, that to me is what it means being a boss, you know. So I always say, finding happiness and balance and have control over your life and grow every single day in both aspects is what makes all of us.
I absolutely agree. And I think part of the thing that I loved about this panel especially is that it was such a consideration of the community that you're around, like being authentic, sharing exactly where you're at, both the success and failure that you're experiencing, and then being arm in arm with the people who are sitting next to you. Like there's enough to go around, and we can learn so much from each other. But the amount of times that people talked about their community and talking to other people as like a point of, you know, getting balance, getting perspective, helping set priorities, like that was something that really was woven through this entire discussion. I would like to open it up now for any questions that anybody has.